are the global elite communicating in symbols. Over 2,000 years old? What do this fish and the number 14 really mean when they're used together? Get ready for another mind-blowing Pizzagate episode, but this time it's all about the ancient occult. How does it all relate to ancient Egyptian culture and religion? Does it have any connection to certain monuments found around the world today? And what about numerology? What numbers may be important to the global elites? Join us as we unravel the ancient mysteries and dark secrets that they don't want you to know about. All this and more on edgeofwonder.tv. Pizzagate 5, the bizarre Podesta 14 and fish occult rabbit hole. The Illuminati is the continuation of the mystery religions of Babylon and Egypt. And the bloodlines of the Illuminati go back to people who at one time lived in Babylon and Egypt.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Pizza Fence episode 5. And yes, this might turn into our longest series yet. In fact, I don't really see an end in sight, do you?
I don't think so. I mean, every little thing we dive into leads to another massive rabbit hole.
I know.
So I don't really think there is an end in sight.
Seriously.
And it almost feels like we've barely gotten into it and we've uncovered so much already.
And one of the major parts of the Pizzagate scandal revolves around those WikiLeaks emails. You guys remember those, of course. The Podesta and Clinton emails have been the center of an enormous amount of research from Annans to citizen journalists, you name it.
And for good reason. Lots of things were revealed there. And also some very strange things were there too.
In our first Pizza Fence episode, we talked about the coded terms used on the dark web to determine preferences when these sickos are shopping for children.
To review a few, cheese is code for little girl. Pizza is for girl. Hot dog is for boy. Pasta is for little boy. We'll show a full list here. You can go back and reference it whenever you need. But let's review some emails.
There are several emails on the Podesta and the Clinton server that use these words and have been debated about whether they mean nefarious things or not. You can easily look into those.
We'll review a few lines from the strangest emails now.
Email entries.
This is from entry 32759. Susan Sandler to John Podesta. She says, "Hi John, the realtor found a handkerchief. I think it has a map that seems pizza related. Is it yours? They can send it to you if you want. I know you're busy, so feel free not to respond if it's not yours or don't want it."
Now, map in that list we showed means semen. This email alone could be almost single-handedly responsible for the term Pizzagate. Now, entry 30489. Now, this is a forwarded message from Hillary Clinton to Huma Abedin, and the original is from Louis Amsalem. Quote, "With fingers crossed, the old rabbit's foot out of the box in the attic, I will be sacrificing a chicken in the backyard to Moloch," unquote.
Like what? Like seriously, who knows who Moloch is unless you're in a secret satanic society or just seriously into the occult, or, you know, us like who researches this like crazy. And if you read the entirety of this entry, you can see it sort of comes in the context of government related things.
What's scarier is that some speculate that the word chicken is used to describe an underaged boy. So some researchers wonder if the sacrificed life was a boy and not a chicken. It's not us saying that, we're just explaining what researchers are speculating about.
All right, next one, entry 15893. Dinner from Tony Podesta to John Podesta. Dear Tony, I am so looking forward to the spirit cooking dinner at my place. Do you think you'll be able to let me know if your brother is joining? All my love, Marina.
Love for Marina? What does that mean? Okay, we've covered Marina Abramovic a few times throughout our shows. Her spirit cooking is the epitome of depravity. She paints with blood and semen, and there's photographic evidence of all kinds of other weird things that look like either legit cannibalism or staged cannibalism. I mean, you have to look into this yourselves.
Yeah. However, it's unclear whether John went to this event, but word on the street is he didn't attend that one. But how are we to really know, right?
So what the heck are high-profile people doing talking about these things in government emails, and why isn't it being taken more seriously in the mainstream media?
On top of that, why are they even going to someone's house that way? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Well, everyone, that's exactly why it's important for us to look into these things.
Also, it needs to be pointed out that Tony Podesta is missing right now. No one knows where the heck he is, but if he was into some of this crazy stuff that people suspect by looking at his art collection, maybe he went missing because someone got to him or arrested him. We don't know.
Now, there's been so much research done on these emails that you guys can look into on your own, but I think we pretty much said what we needed to for now. So with that...
Yeah, in this episode, we're going to do something a bit different. We're going to dig into a very specific rabbit hole revolved around symbolism and see where it leads.
The Podesta tweet.
In March 2016, the Clinton and Podesta emails dropped on WikiLeaks. In the days, weeks, and months following the drop, an incredible amount of research was done by poring over every word said in their dealings.
It's no wonder that a very particular image on John Podesta's Twitter, and also happens to be a part of the WikiLeaks emails, got people's attention.
And that post was from September 25th, 2015, where John Podesta shared what would appear to be a very normal tweet regarding, quote, global goals for a better world by 2030. The post was created by his assistant, Mila Fisher.
The tweet reads, important but overlooked. Global goal number 14, we must protect our oceans and life they sustain. Hashtag SDGs.
And along with this tweet is this photo of John Podesta with a 14 on his right hand and a fish on his left and a very creepy smirk on his face. And the girl who posted this for him, her last name has fish in it. Her name is Mila Fisher. I mean, you can't make this crap up, really.
You can't. I mean, back to the tweet, kind of hard to argue with the messaging in this tweet, unless you're like us and know way too much about climate change and what the Illuminati's idea of a global goal is. But that's just it, isn't it?
When all those people who had been reading those emails and know too much about the Illuminati decided to start looking into this, and let's not forget referencing the above email we read, where high-level officials are casually talking about Moloch, well, a lot of questions came up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are these global goals and what are they for? Who's involved? Why make a tweet about this particular goal? How many goals were there? And do these symbols on John Podesta's hands mean anything else? There was a fish and a 14.
Well, hold on to your seats, everyone. You're about to fall into a rabbit hole spanning thousands of years.
The global goals.
So let's talk about the global goals first.
Firstly, you're wondering what the global goals are. This is a UN initiative. Here's what the website says about its purpose.
In 2015, world leaders agreed to 17 goals for a better world by 2030. These goals have the power to end poverty, fight inequality, and address the urgency of climate change. Guided by the goals, it is now up to all of us, governments, businesses, civil society, and the general public to work together to build a better future for everyone.
Well, on the surface, it sounds pretty righteous, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, but we know from our research that the UN is the organization created to push the one world order global agenda. It's like a government in place that is operating behind the scenes globally, and all the countries have to pay dues.
Now, if we take a look at the Global Goals website, we can glean many things. First things first, we can see that number 14 is indeed the life below water with a fish on it.
Well, if this global goal initiative was something them Lumadonkeys were interfering with, certainly 13 would be important to them too, right? Oh well, what do we see here?
Holy cow, that's just blatant. 13 is climate action and the symbol is an eye, you guys. Why an eye unless Okay, hang on. Let's go to the beginning of the list and look at this. We all know that climate change is a gigantic goal for the globalists, right? We can agree on that.
Exactly. Wouldn't that be closer to the beginning of the list, right? I mean,
yeah,
having
exactly.
climate change. So it should, but the first several of the list are things like no poverty, zero hunger, quality education, clean and sustainable water. Okay, so 8 through 12 pretty much make no sense if this is in the priority of importance for their agendas.
So it's clear that 13 here is housing the deep state's most important agenda item. And why can we assume that? Well, when Jeffrey Epstein's arrest and not suicide happened, what distracted everyone from looking into it? Greta Thunberg appeared, and all of a sudden, the lamestream media put her up everywhere instead of talking about all the children that had been abused by certain specific elites, which is frickin' abysmal.
Before we ask the question, what is 14, let's see what else we can find on the page. Because we need to speed this up, we're just gonna point this out pretty quickly.
If you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's some really weird logos. These are companies the Global Goals Initiative partners with to make the site and the campaign. First, we see Project Everyone. Yeah, we all know what that means. It's just weird that their goal is a one world order to make everyone the same, and this is their PR and media creation wing of this whole initiative.
Next is the New Division, which is their campaign wing and also happens to sound New World Orderly, and Code and Conspire, who apparently coded their webpage. It's called Code and Conspire.
That's crazy.
Why? Who are they conspiring against? Us? Left-wing folks are really afraid of this word, so I fail to see how this is a wise word to use in a coding industry where hacking is so prevalent.
I mean, I really don't get it. Why are you going to name your stuff so closely to this NWO vocabulary? I mean, really.
Just hiding in plain sight. Now it gets deeper, and this isn't something we've touched on yet, but when you look at the creative agency that took care of all of this, and see who their other clients are, it's also interesting. They're called Trollback and Company. The CEO of Code and Conspire also happens to be Anton Trollback.
Their creative agency clientele list is telling. Nick Jr., which we've heard so many things about related to the treatment of children, the New York Times, John Oliver, 5G. No, seriously, Verizon 5G, it's just a big 5G logo. Apple, Google Maps, I mean, are we seeing a pattern here?
I mean, I still can't get over that the coding company was called Code and Conspire. Never mind who this agency's clients are.
I mean, right. Okay, so we can in fact see a picture starting to form just from looking at the site for the global goals. It would make sense then that the 14 in fish was some type of communication then, right? Furthermore, why did Podesta have that on his hand?
14 in fish.
The number 14 and fish.
So the question is then, is there symbolism behind goal number 14? I mean, we always hear about the number 13 as being related to the Illumidonkey, but what about 14? Not so much, right?
Well, this could not be further from reality. Is anyone out there familiar with Egyptian culture? Egyptian culture is incredibly important because this is where one of the last attempts on creating the next golden age was.
The term golden age basically refers to a time when Saturn ruled. Saturn, as we know from our Deep State series, is the symbolism that the evil empire used to represent Satan. Watch that Deep State series if this doesn't make sense to you right now, because we explain all of it there.
Is anyone familiar with the story of Osiris? You probably remember it being told to you, or at one point or another in history class somewhere. Osiris was one of the trinity of the gods in Egyptian culture. Yes, Egyptian culture had a trinity too.
That trinity was Osiris, Horus, and Isis. Yes, Isis. You didn't hear that wrong. Now, we'll get into the trinities later if time permits. Isis goes kind of outside of this episode, but is basically another deity that the Illumidonkey uses in their symbolism.
And to remind everyone, Lucifer is referred to as the demon of 1,000 names. The Illumidonkey calls him a god, but we all know he's a little biatch.
Dude, seriously, like kids are watching.
Sorry, man, somebody needed to say it.
But although I don't even know if like kids would be watching this episode anyway.
Yeah, I hope not, actually. But anyway, back to Osiris. So the Osiris myth says that out of jealousy, Osiris's brother, Set, murdered him and cut his body up into a bunch of parts and tossed it all over the place, I guess some being in the Nile.
So one version we heard was in different places, one was also in the Nile. Isis had to find the missing parts to resurrect him, but his dong was eaten by Oxyrhynchus, a fish, Oxyrhynchus fish.
Isis then found the other 13 parts of his body, learned some magic from this guy named Thoth, yes, the Thoth, created a golden dong replacement part for Osiris, magically resurrected him temporarily, and had a son with Osiris named Horus. I mean, it was a magical golden dong, right?
I guess so. Okay, so in a nutshell, 14 plus fish is, get ready?
Osiris's dong.
which in other words symbolizes power, sex, magic with a K, resurrection, life, and so much more to the Illuminati.
I see what you did there. I like it. Now, you might be sitting there wondering why there's so much talk about dongs. They must be really important to you guys. Well, that couldn't really be further from the truth. It's just important to them Illuminadongies.
All right. To review, with the 14th missing piece, they can resurrect their god. In a blog post from the Open Scroll blog, we found some interesting information about dongs.
Quote, it's a symbol of victory over death, as in how Isis raised dead Osiris into her son Horus after magically fashioning a phallus to replace the one that had been eaten by the fish. With his hand in that position, John is signaling a squared circle, framing his round face as inside a square. The grid of ceiling tiles completes the square. This form is linked to Freemasonry, squaring the circle as an adept with a square and compass. But this is really a sign of the act of sodomy, a ritual act through which he was very likely illumined and initiated into the ancient sun cult, unquote.
I mean, we're like laughing at this, right? Because it's funny, but
crazy.
It's just insane.
Yeah,
it really
totally.
is. I mean, it's like, it's so crazy. Okay, now there's a lot more information about this out there. The fish can be seen everywhere, right? The Vesica piscis, which is taken from the flower of life, is said to be the ichthys. That's the fish with the word Jesus inside of it.
Christians take this as references from the Bible for various things, but there's a serious case for this to mean something otherwise, especially since its reemergence in the 1960s when the New Age movement also took on a life of its own.
So trust us when we say this rabbit hole is just heating up. So it's safe to say this idea of the 14 and fish would be everywhere if we looked, right?
Well, what's an Egyptian symbol that appears phallic?
Don't you mean dongish? Or like dongle? Okay, well, it's the Egyptian obelisk, right? The Washington Monument is the largest Egyptian dong on the planet.
You mean obelisk, Ben? I'm frankly appalled at you right now. But let's talk about the Washington Monument.
The Washington Monument.
Before we go any further, we need to talk a moment about numerology. One of the ways the Illuminati use symbolism against us is in the form of numerology. Numbers like 13, 14, and 666 mean a lot to them.
So how numerology works is anything in a series of numbers that equals these important numbers, or that in a roundabout way represent these numbers, is the same as those numbers and compound the meaning and the power.
So let's take a look at the Washington Monument and see if any of this is true. It was intended to measure at 555.5 feet. Its column width is 55.5 feet.
Now, it may have sunk into the swampy marshes of Washington, D.C. a bit since then, but this was the intention. So if you multiply these numbers in feet to get their inches, you see something very strange. The Washington Monument is 6,666 inches high and 666 inches wide.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where those numbers are because 666 exists in both of those figures. To the Illuminati, it's just 666. So somebody was screwing with us.
And that's not all. If the Washington Monument is the dong...
That is screwing with us, you mean?
Okay, well, if the Washington Monument is the dong, well, where's the fish? Have a look at this photo of an aerial view of the Washington Monument. Boom, 14 and fish right there, staring right at us.
When the Washington Monument was built, it was the tallest building in the world. That would make it one of the biggest dongs in the world.
Speaking of Egypt,
You might be thinking this 14 number isn't really all that big of a deal. There's not that much going on here. Well, we're not even close to finished yet, because we're going to talk about something else that defines Egypt more than anything. It's pyramids, right?
We'll go ahead and explain all of this. Now, remember what we said about how numerology works. If the numbers exist behind other numbers, or as a part of other numbers, or sometimes if the differences point to those numbers, then it represents those numbers through the Illuminati.
So, if Egyptian culture is as important to the Illuminati as we all think it is, there would be a lot of things hiding in plain sight, right?
For starters, the pyramids have a very particular order. To make a long story short, when you look at them from above, you'll notice 3 pyramids. If you draw a line from their corners and follow the lines, they point directly to
the World Trade Buildings. No, seriously, they do. Not only do they point directly to it, but if you lay the image of the pyramids over the 2 towers and the Freedom Tower, they line up almost exactly. See, now that's just scary.
Super scary. We'd like to give a shout out to the YouTube channel Enter the Stars, where a lot of great research was done in a video he posted called Podesta's 14 Fish Hand Markings Explained in a Prophetic 2015 upload.
It's safe to say our rabbit hole on the number 14 was helped by this video. We'll mix some things in he found with some things we found.
So the memorial and the One World Tower is the modern day Egypt, and the One World Tower is Osiris's dong. Why do we say that? So the One World Tower opened on 11/3/2014.
Yeah, that's November 3rd, 2014.
Right, so it's 11 plus 3, which equals 14 in 2014.
And it was 2014. So the building was built with 94 floors that you can occupy and 5 below ground. Yet its top floor is called the 104th floor. 10 plus 4 equals 14. November 3rd, which is 11/3, is the 307th day of the year, with 58 days remaining.
Those two numbers, 307 and 58, must mean something. Well, if you were to be loose with these numbers, take out the 0, you would get 37. 73 is the mirror of 37. There are 73 elevator lifts in the One World Trade building.
So the 307th day is represented by the 73 floors, because we're dealing with representations of these, which also represent 14.
Right, trust us when we say there's more to this, especially if you start digging into the prime numbers as related to the angles on the tower.
If you didn't think this was weird yet, we left out one number. The leftover days equal 58 days, right? Well, remember those lines that were originally drawn from the Egyptian pyramids to New York in the Enter the Stars video? They are at nearly an exact 58-degree angle.
Not to mention, when you're looking up at it, it's the exact pyramid. And same thing when you're looking down, it's like they're triangles on all sides,
right,
and it's a complete pyramid.
So one weird thing too I found was in that video, he was explaining that when you look up, the World Trade Tower turns a little bit, and the angle at the bottom is 73, and the angle at the top is 74.
Wow.
74, the 74th prime number is actually 373. See what I mean? Like, so you've got like these 73s, 373 everywhere, and all of it's supposed to be 14 to them. You see what I know, it's just so weird.
Seriously, this can't all be a coincidence, right? It seems like this is very well planned. These are very specific numbers, but we're gonna tell you why this isn't a coincidence. Right now, you're thinking all of these 14s are just Osiris's dong, right? But that's not the limit of how the Illuminati thinks about all of this.
They believe that the day Jesus was crucified was a sacrifice. On the Babylonian calendar, that date was Nisan 14, which some say was 4/1 that year, April Fools. Sort of gives a new meaning to April Fools, doesn't it? So not only was it considered 4/1 or 14, but it also was Nisan 14 in the Babylonian calendar.
All right, just to note, you guys, it was really hard for us to track back the dates. So what we've dealt with in our research comes down to one or two things. Either Jesus was sacrificed on Nisan 14 or 4/1. They may have not been the same day, but either way, the Illuminati uses both of these.
What's important is, if this is true, then everything equating 14 to them is specifically a reminder of that sacrifice. And for a moment, think about how the world sees the destruction of the World Trade Center. Could that have been a huge sacrifice? This is literally the world these freaks live in.
Not to mention, it gives a whole new meaning to April Fools if Jesus really did.
It's like they made a joke out of it,
yes.
Man.
I'll
like
never
killing
look
a
at
god.
April Fools ever again.
I know.
Horrible.
And then every time, it's almost like, think about it, every time someone plays a joke on someone on April Fools, it's like, now that could be an extreme way of looking at it, right? Like a lot of things are in good fun and you can't really say that about everything.
Right.
But really think about it to them. They've made a mockery out of everything, right? And gosh.
This is another way they're doing it.
And now, the conclusion, with a little bonus.
So are you guys tired of this 14 yet? Still need another proof? So according to the general layout of the World Trade Area, the One World Tower is in the place of the small pyramid. In Egypt, this pyramid is the Pyramid of Menkaure.
Menkaure was found in the pyramid with his queen and several deities, the most important of which was Hassat. Hassat was an incredibly important horned god in Egyptian culture.
Hassat was the wife of Ra. She was considered the sky cow, the nourisher of all life. Her symbol was milk, and milk was considered the beer of Hassat.
As was pointed out in the Enter the Stars video, 14 years before the 2001 Two Towers attack in 1987, many movies debuted in Hollywood revolved around a milk theme.
Here's a short list to prove this point.
14 years, okay, so this is all 14 years before 9/11 in 1987. The Living Daylights, Milkman infiltrates a mansion with milk bombs. Dragnet, pagans use a local milk factory to mass produce toxic gas. The Believers, mother dies from electrocution after stepping in milk, it seems, and the boy then suffers trauma whenever he sees milk. I think that's the most important part. In Hellraiser, there was some milk theme stuff going on. In Beloved in 1987, a woman is raped and her breast milk is taken. And then in Alien Nation, aliens drink sour milk to get drunk, the beer of Hassat. The Man Who Fell to Earth, there was, drinking of sour milk and it puts a guy in a hospital.
Now think about how many movies you can think of where milk is the theme like this.
Like this, right?
Seriously.
I even remember when these movies came out, and at the time I actually thought it was really weird. Like specifically Alien Nation was on it all the time when I was a kid, and I remember thinking how gross drinking sour milk out of freaking whatever. It was just like it was in the cabinet, like they would just take it out and drink it or something.
I didn't really, I watched it a little bit, but that show really freaked me out for some reason. I don't know why.
Probably you were just sensed how messed up it was, but it was on like every cable channel.
It was. I think my mom watched it a little bit here and there.
Right.
I saw like a couple episodes, but it was, I don't know, I just found it weird for some reason. All of these movies were exactly 14 years before the World Trade attack. After hearing all of the numbers above, could any of this be a mere coincidence?
So in regards to the 14 and fish image that was seen on Podesta's page, it's quite obvious that these people are communicating extremely effectively using symbolism from a very ancient culture that is clearly not dead.
And if you really want to dive into the rabbit hole even deeper, did you guys know that Podesta was in New Zealand days before the Christchurch shooting on March 14th, 2019? Not only that, but why did the shooter have a 14 and what looks like a fish drawn on his gun?
Podesta even said in articles published by New Zealand media that, quote, New Zealand is a big juicy target for a cyber attack. I mean, you can't really make this up, and we're not accusing him of anything because we don't have what judges would consider proof, but this is information for you to know so that you can look into this for yourself.
Yeah, why was Podesta, he just happened to be in New Zealand when the shooting happened?
Is anybody surprised?
But the bigger question is, why didn't a single media in the US report on the fact that he was there right before the shooting happened, and instead they focused on Q and A-chan?
Jeez. So to be quite honest, this was not the entirety of this rabbit hole, far from it. Things got crazy when we started digging into the Trinities and the Eye of Providence. In an episode soon, we're going to go into this and explain all of it for you, and it is definitely going to blow your mind.
So let your crash course on numerology, 14, and fish end here, and until next time, we will see you guys out
on the edge
of anything but Osiris's dong.
Anything but that. Anything but that.
No more dongs.
I've had enough dongs for my entire lifetime. No more donks.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Thanks so much for watching this episode here on .tv.
If you're here, you're awesome, and we thank you so much for supporting this platform on edgeofwonder.tv.
Yeah, seriously, we couldn't do it without you guys supporting us. So be sure to check back every Thursday when we post new and exclusive episodes that we only make for you guys, our subscribers.
And you know it's gonna be something juicy because we saved the best for you right here on edgeofwonder.tv. Plus, we can't really put it on YouTube because they're gonna take us down if we do.
Very true. So, until next time, we'll see you guys on
The Edge
of .tv.